Joining me now, NBC News chief White House correspondent and Weekend Today co-anchor Kristen Welker and former top economic advisor to President Obama, Jason Furman, now a professor at the Harvard Kennedy School. Welcome both. Well, Kristen, they were certainly not sugarcoating it afterwards. This was not one of those meetings where they come out saying, well, it was just great. They're going to meet again on Friday, but this was not a good start. And the president afterward, importantly, seems to even hold open the possibility, he didn't shut it down, of not going to the G7 in Asia next week. Is that even possible, according to your reporting?
It was an extraordinary statement by President Biden, Andrea, the fact that he put that on the table. Now, administration officials are trying to determine how realistic that would be to cancel this last minute. He did stress that would be a last minute resort. But you're right, Andrea. What was so striking is that the two sides seemed just as dug in as when this meeting started. You saw those fireworks back and forth, with Speaker McCarthy accusing the president of lying about veterans benefits, with the president accusing Speaker McCarthy of essentially being out of line in that meeting, and some Democratic sources saying he was rude. But the question becomes, where do the talks go from here? Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, traveling on Air Force One, just told reporters, Andrea, that staffers will be meeting every day and that they have been meeting throughout this week to try to come to some type of resolution. And what does that look like? We know that there are some areas of potential common ground that are emerging, but the bottom line is time is running out. There's less than a month. The president also didn't take the possibility off the table of invoking the 14th Amendment, which would allow him to address this unilaterally. But that could prompt a real crisis as well, Andrea. So all eyes will be on the Friday meeting. The fact that they're meeting, potential progress.
Yeah. Jason, you've been through this before when President Obama and the Republicans were clashing over the debt ceiling in 2011. They're going to meet again Friday. But you've got the Republicans presenting budget cuts, including canceling 3 of his, special programs. The fact that he would cancel the IRA, which he fought so hard for in other programs, is just untenable. That's an offer he has to refuse. That's the president now getting off Air Force One, going towards Marine One at JFK with Senator Gillibrand. Jason, your reaction?
Yeah, look. The question really boils down to, do the Republicans mean what they're saying right now? In 2011, they hated the Affordable Care Act. I don't even ever remember them asking for that to be repealed as part of the debt limit negotiation. They just knew it wasn't going to happen. Do they think the Inflation Reduction Act, this president's signature climate bill, is going to be repealed? Maybe they know that that's a demand that they're going to drop, in which case, maybe this could have a solution at the end of it. We know 2 things need to happen. The debt limit needs to be raised, and there needs to be a discretionary number for next year that is going to be below what the president wants and above what the Republicans want. If they could do those 2 things, there is a solution here. But you try to repeal the climate bill, of course there isn't a solution.
And Jason, when they say that they're not making cuts, they're setting spending at 2022 level. So that's a cut because it doesn't count for inflation in any of those discretionary programs. You can't cut from entitlements, which they've all said they won't do, and you can't cut from defense. In fact, they're increasing defense because of Ukraine.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right, which is that, it costs more to do the same amount you were doing 2 years ago. And by the way, Andrew, you're also getting more tax revenue because of it. That inflation feeds into your revenue base, and that's why economists look at things scaled by inflation or scaled by GDP or something like that. And so in real terms, the Republican bill, would be a pretty deep cut. Will there need to be something, again, less than the president wants on discretionary? Absolutely, at the end of this, and I assume he understands that as well. But that's the normal give and take, not the very abnormal holding the global economy hostage for a set of very extreme demands that may also be going on here.
And so far, both sides have ruled out doing the short-term deal, or at least the Republicans have, I should say, ruled out the short-term extension or any of the ways to finesse this, Kristen, by saying, well, we'll do budget cuts in September, but we'll agree to a cap right now, something like that.
So this is interesting, Andrea, because you have both the White House and lawmakers on Capitol Hill saying that they want a long-term extension. That is the preference. But in talking to sources who are close to these negotiations, sources close to the president, they say, look, they're not taking anything off the table, and it may be more realistic to get a short-term deal and then to deal with budget appropriations in the fall and lift the debt limit. But there's no doubt that a short-term extension only kicks the can down the road, adds to the economic uncertainty. And of course, this is all coming against the backdrop of the president's reelection campaign. It is not overstated to say that his reelection prospects will undoubtedly in part be linked to the economy. And so there's a lot riding on all of this. Speaker McCarthy's job in large part depends on being able to resolve this as well. And Jason knows this better than anyone, but back in 2011, there were serious economic consequences, even though they struck a deal. But just that process that was perceived to be so complicated was a blow to the economy, Andrea. And
Jason, just briefly, the GDP numbers, the CPI rather, came out today on inflation, and it was 4.9% year over year. So the 10th straight month of it cooling somewhat. Do you think there's a point where the Fed would change their 2%, 2% target range and settle for a number that, not 4.9, but there's something closer to that?
Look, the data you're showing on the screen there is the overall inflation rate. That's what matters for families. It includes things like food and gas that are really important to people. You strip those out, look at the underlying core measure of inflation. There's been less progress there. That says there's more stubbornness to the underlying inertial part of inflation. So I think it's going to continue to be a challenge for the Fed. But yeah, they might declare victory at 3%.
Jason Furman, thank you so much. Kristen Welker, thanks for all your reporting. Really appreciate it.